It's time for the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is the voice of the working class, Rick Smith.
And welcome, brothers, sisters, working class heroes. This is the Rick Smith Show. Thanks so much for being here. Today on the big program, lots to get to, lots to talk about. Donald Trump went down to the border. He was looking for a peso to steal. Electorally way behind, still whining about stopping the steal. Actually, I don't care. Honestly, I had a whole Charlie Daniels band thing going on because I had this image of Donald Trump going down. He was making the deal with the devil. And then I just got to the point where do I really care what Donald Trump's doing down at the border when there are so many other things that have to be done? I don't want to hear the same shtick. I don't want to hear the whining. I don't want to hear the complaining, especially when literally in our streets, the heat is melting cables that bring power to people's homes. The streets are buckling from the heat out west. And you still have people denying we have a climate problem, still denying that we have an infrastructure problem that we need to look. The one thing I agreed with Rex Tillerson on is that we have the capacity to technology to address some of the issues of climate change. Now, he didn't care about climate change. In fact, good old dirt oil, let's do it. Because he thought, we'll just live in bubbles. We'll breathe oxygen out of canisters, whatever the new technology is going to be. Profit motive, disaster capitalism on steroids. And this is what we're seeing. We're seeing the effects of climate change and how unprepared we have been. And this is one of those things that environmentalists have been saying for decades now. This isn't new, so don't act surprised. Like, oh my goodness, who knew? I never thought climate change was real. Yeah, front and center. We've been talking about this for decades. I go back to my childhood with Jimmy Carter saying, hey, let's put some solar panels up on the roof, start alternative energy. First thing Ronald Reagan did, came in, ripped him right out, said, no, we're going to oil, baby. And we've stayed there since the Reagan era. A couple of little tries here and there, but the Republicans always bring us back. Always bring us back to the dirty stuff. Keep the veins full of the dirty stuff. This is where we are. And you look at the temperatures out west. What was it in Spokane? Something like 115 degrees or 105 degrees in Spokane. They're literally having rolling blackouts because people are using so much electricity because our infrastructure can't handle it. And you'd go, we've seen this coming. Shouldn't we have been doing something? I mean, Texas, you go down, it got really cold in Texas. Who thought it was going to get really cold in Texas? Well, people for decades have been saying we've got to do something about this. And surprise, when it got cold, we were unprepared. Out west, it's really freaking hot, unprepared. Not because we weren't forewarned, not because people weren't sounding the alarms that we need to upgrade our infrastructure, rewire stuff, do that. No. We've been told. It's just we have a failure of leadership from top to bottom. And finally, in a very small way, this infrastructure bill does some of that, nowhere near enough, not even close, some of it. In fact, today it reported Pete Buttigieg, the transportation secretary, was doling out some grant money to repair cracked bridges in Seattle because the crippling heat. Expanding, ports, doing some things in Iowa, some stuff in Georgia to reduce greenhouse gas, looking with climate as a focus, kind of moving us in that direction, but also critical infrastructure that we need and the jobs that we need with it. And it got me into one of these weird conversations today of, we can't do all those stuff because there's this invisible hand. And there are some among us who believe that we're powerless. We as working people are completely powerless. We're at the whim of the boss. We're at the whim of the government. Everybody's pushing us around. And I had this weird kind of conversation with somebody who was really fearful of everything now. It seems to me like, there have been a number of people I've come across recently, working people like me who are like whipped dogs. And I know that's a horrible a horrible analogy, but it is. We're so skittish, so afraid, looking at everything, crazy like. And don't send me emails saying I'm advocating whipping dogs. I don't. I would rather whip the person who thought of whipping a dog. But the point I'm making is we've gotten to this point as working people where we're just skittish and afraid. And it got me into this frame of mind of how do we regain that empowerment? Because I don't understand someone who doesn't believe that their voice doesn't matter, that their thoughts don't matter, that somehow they're secondary. I'm struggling with that in this, especially in the workplace. Empowerment to me in the workplace has always been key, because if you feel that empowerment on the job, it's gonna carry over into other things. And how this conversation went is, I was explaining the powers of being a union member, the things that are contractually enforced, that people have the right to speak up when conditions are unsafe, when they feel something's wrong. They have the ability to have a voice, not just do what you're told. And I was explaining the difference between at-will employment and just cause discharge. Whereas in an at-will employment situation, you can be fired for anything at any time, as long as they don't violate a federal protected class. Like, they can't tell me you're an old guy. We hate old people. All you old people have to go. That would be a problem. That would be problematic for them, and something that probably shouldn't do. Just kind of a thought. But for any other reason, hey, you're wearing a black shirt today. Don't like black shirts. You're fired. That's perfectly legal. You figure it out. I can't. And I was explaining that in a union setting, you have a contract, and you can only be fired or disciplined or any of that for cause. You have to do something wrong. And this concept didn't sink into someone's head as I'm explaining that, you have the right to stand up for yourself. And they kept, well, won't they be mad? And I struggled with that, though. Won't they be mad? Well, aren't you mad? Aren't you mad that your safety's at risk? Aren't you mad that you're being cheated out of wages? Aren't you mad that you've been cheated out of breaks or overtime or whatever the issue is? Aren't you mad at that? At what point do we say, I'm fed up with it already? Enough. When do we grab that power? So when I got home and I started reading through some news, I came across this story I believe it's in Kansas, where the BCTGM, the bakery workers, voted to strike at Frito-Lay. In fact, the vote was just overwhelmingly on the side of striking. It was like 353 to 30 that they voted to strike, and the response from the company was priceless. Really was. Because they know we're afraid. They know we're beat down, or at least they believe that. But evidently they've been negotiating for more than 9 months to reach an agreement. They've been negotiating 9 months to come up with an agreement. Seems lengthy. So the workers on Saturday voted to strike, and the company's response was priceless. They were shocked. They were shocked that the workers would call a strike, because the negotiations, the company said, were cordial. The union gave no indication that they weren't going to continue to put up with being pushed around and and in this situation where 9 months to get a contract. So they voted to go on strike, and that may happen on July 5th. We'll keep an eye on that. In fact, we're reaching out to folks now to see who we talk to. But it got me into this mindset that, how did we get from, a group of workers when I first started who were willing to shut stuff down, had strong backbones, had spines, empowered, to this kind of the pendulum of power has swung to the employer, to where they're shocked when workers, finally go, we've had enough. Shocked when the dog turns around and bites them. And, we're in this weird moment. And this is where this conversation then went. We're in a moment where this is the time workers should be grabbing the mantle of empowerment. They should be grabbing the power, because what do we hear every day? There's a labor shortage. We can't get people to come and work. This is the moment of your labor is most valuable at this moment. Your power to fold your arms and march your feet and not work is the ultimate power. And I've always said that. You know, those low wage, crappy jobs in the service industry that weren't paying but minimum wage are now up to $12-15 an hour. Why? Because they can't get people to do them. And what I was saying for the longest time is, you know, your ability to say no is your power. Your ability to organize together and stop is your power. And this is playing out. This is a moment for mass organizing. This is a moment for people to say, we can make our lives better. And, you know, we're seeing all these places. You know, I see them all the time. I'm looking, because I'm always looking for jobs and always looking at what the employment picture is. And there are people out there offering, you know, $1,000, $5,000, $10,000 sign-on bonuses, especially in the trucking industry. There's one company locally that was offering like $15,000 for CDL drivers because they can't seem to find any. I would argue treat them better, you know, make their lives livable, and you're going to get people to come to those jobs. But they're offering these big bonuses, and I'm like, we don't want bonuses. We want decent wages. We want good benefits. We want good conditions. I don't want a one-time bonus that's going to be I'm going to have it and then it's going to go away, and then over the next 10 years, I'm still working in the same crummy conditions with lower wages than I should. But this is one of those moments where, you know, for the first time in decades, workers have some bit of power. And you'll get the Republicans saying, well, it's all because of Joe Biden and the unemployment insurance. And some of that's true, a little bit of it's true. A little bit of it's true that the rescue money that we needed to get through the pandemic gave people a little cushion. It's true that you know, the unemployment that gave a little bit of boost, gave people a little bit of cushion so they can be a little choosier, which is what we want from an unemployment situation. We don't want desperate people taking poverty wage jobs and pulling us all down. We don't want that. We don't need it. We've had it for too long. Now we got a chance to change some of that. But they're screaming because, you know, there are all these jobs they claim are open, millions of these service sector jobs that again, don't pay reasonable wages with benefits that you can support a family on. Look, I'm a firm believer in work. I believe everybody should have to work, but I believe every job should be one that you're able to support yourself on. You're able to feed your family on. You're able to protect their health and your retirement. There should be something there. I'm not saying we're all going to be Bill Gates or Jeff Bezos. I don't want to make a killing. I just want to make a living. I want to make sure that if an emergency pops up, I can swing the $400 I'm going to need to take care of that. Where before the pandemic, more than 60% of people were not. So we're in this moment where, and I think this is a short moment. I think, you know, the Republicans are doing everything they can in Republican states to pull back the unemployment, which is pushing people back into desperation situations. And down the road, once we get people desperate enough, once the cushion wears out and people can't be as choosy, you're going to start seeing wages come back down again. We've seen this play before. It's what's going on. And again, it's the reason that I'm a firm believer in union contracts and the stickiness of wages when you sign on the dotted line. But we have this moment. We have this moment to engage in real discussions about what kind of an economy do we want to have? What kind of a future do we want for working people? Now, I keep saying we need to pass something like the PRO Act. We need to get union organizing easier. We need to get workers the ability to join and form unions, much like my grandparents' generation did. Very easy. You sign a card, you begin negotiating. You don't get a contract, you go on strike, and you build community support around that. And I've always been a believer of when people are doing better, people are doing better. When you're doing better, eventually I'm going to do better, and conditions all rise. And I was talking about that as well to someone today about when I first started in the trucking industry. 85% of the LTL trucking industry was unionized, which meant the wages were significantly higher, and the other 15% that weren't unionized made almost the same wage. Now you have a completely upside down scenario where, well, those union companies are being pulled down because you have such non-union control of the industry. That has to be turned around. And it starts with bargaining. It starts with organizing. Now, what we're told is that they're just a bunch of lazy people. We got all these lazy people who refuse to work. And what we're finding out is that's not actually true. We're finding out that about a quarter of people are worried about COVID. They're still worried of getting COVID and waiting for the vaccine. We're finding about 20% are saying that they now have that financial cushion I was talking about. They got a little bit of money. They're doing okay. They're going to get through the next however long they can. Then they're going to get back to work. Around 12% are saying that it's unemployment. So for all of the rhetoric that we're getting out of the GOP about the lazy people and Biden's unemployment, they're saying about 12% are those folks. Childcare is another major factor that they point out. About 20% of low-wage workers are saying, look, I can't afford childcare. And again, these are issues that we can deal with. Now, is this a new era of worker power? Is this it? I think for the short period, yes. I think in the short run, there's an opportunity here. But I think long haul, if we don't get a massive infrastructure bill that's going to create more jobs, if we don't do the things that need to be done to boost employment and better employment, we're going to move back to a desperation situation where workers are going to be forced to take whatever's left. Right now, the economy doing really well. And if we can get something of a reasonable infrastructure bill, I think that carries us off into the next boom. But the question keeps coming back to, how are we, the working people, going to fare from that? Are we going to benefit from it? Are we going to be the ones who, at the end of it, say, hey, we made our lives better? Or is it going to be another opportunity for the wealthy to get wildly, wildly wealthy? While the rest of us are looking around going, well, we made it through, almost. This is where empowerment comes. This is where understanding the sense of the moment. Mass organizing right now to keep those wages where they are. Because trust me, the second corporate America decides that no more labor shortage, they're going to start clawing back all of that stuff, and with interest. Love to hear your thoughts. You can email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. Going to take a quick break. When we come back, Stephen Greenhouse is going to be here to share some thoughts. Right back.
Then workers standing up, and the union gives a voice to win. On the Rick Smith Show.